Welcome back to another episode of With a Grain of Salt. I'm your host, Isaiah Salter, and I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in for yet another week, another podcast episode. If you are watching, you can see I'm wearing the Gray Grains hoodie. I love this thing. I've been rocking this sample the past 2 months, wearing it in different terrain, different situations, and I absolutely love it. So I'll make sure to let y'all know when this is available. Make sure you cop. You already know, support the podcast, support the brand. You guys already know, get your grains in, man. Get your grains in. But this week's episode is going to be on becoming the victor of your life. Becoming the victor of your life. In life, there's two ways you can go about handling experiences and the things that happen to you and the things that you go through. You can either take the stance of victimhood, where you are constantly giving your power away to the things that happen to you, to what people do to you, to what people say to you, to the things that are outside of your control. Or you could take the stance of the victor, to where you understand, no, not everything is my fault, and there's going to be a lot of things that happen to me that are outside of my control, but I always have the ability to respond in a way that helps me rather than hurt me, right? And that's what the victor mindset puts you in. It helps you to respond to the things that you go through in a more aligned and authentic way, so that you can grow from those experiences rather than wither and become resentful and become bitter and stay stuck because of the things that have been done to you. So we're going to dive into becoming the victor of your life, because each and every one of us has the ability to become the victor of our life and live a life of authenticity, live a life of alignment, live a life of fulfillment, live a life of purpose. With a grain of salt, you already know. Let's dive in. Point number 1, stop handing your power away. Most people never realize how much of their power they leak throughout the day. It happens quietly, in the way you let someone's comment shift your mood, the way you replay a memory and let it steal your presence, or the way you shrink yourself to avoid discomfort. Becoming the victor of your life means recognizing all of the subtle places where you hand your power away and reclaiming ownership over those areas. It's the moment you stop letting circumstances write your emotional script and start realizing, I get to choose how I show up, I get to choose what I give my energy to, and I get to choose what defines me. When you live from that place, you move differently, more grounded, more intentional, more centered in who you actually want to be. This is deep. More centered in who you actually want to be. So often we allow all of these things outside of ourselves, what that person says, what that person did, the experience we went through, to dictate how we feel on an everyday basis, right? And so we literally become victims of external experiences and external circumstances, right? So literally the only way I feel good is if everything around me is good, right? But if somebody says something I don't like, or something happens to me that's outside of my control, that pushes me in the wrong direction, it affects my emotional state. We need to learn how to take a step back and take our power away, right? Because it's a very, very draining way to live when you are constantly allowing everything outside of yourself to dictate how you feel and how you think and how you show up every single day. No, we're going to take the stance of the victor, and we're going to align ourselves with what we know to be true about us, and we're going to live in that every single day, right? It doesn't mean we're not going to have moments where maybe we get knocked off the path or something frustrates us, but because we're moving with that victor mindset, it helps us to be a lot more grounded, a lot more intentional, and show up in a way that's aligned no matter what we're going through, right? And that is where your power is. That is where your power is, right? I mentioned this last episode how I want to start breaking down certain words so we can get to the origin of them, because it helps us to really understand the essence and substance of what these words mean. Power comes from the Latin word posse. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but bear with me. Meaning to be able. To be able. Over time, the meaning has eroded into ideas of dominance or control. But at its core, power simply means the ability to choose. So literally, your power is in your ability to choose. But so many people give away their ability to choose because they allow everything outside of themselves to dictate how they feel and how they show up in the choices that they make, right? So you are literally giving your power away by not taking a step back and really understanding, hold on, I have the ability to choose how I respond in this situation. I have the ability to choose how I show up in this relationship or in this circumstance. I have the ability to choose how I handle adversity and difficulty in my life. And that is where your power lives, because power literally means to be able, the ability to choose. Your ability to choose. So every time you give your ability away to the external world, you are losing your power. You are giving away your power. And you're going to go through this life feeling powerless rather than empowered. Dr. Joe Dispenza, I love this dude. If you know me and you've been rocking with me for a while, you know Dr. Joe Dispenza is somebody I spend a lot of time listening to and diving into just his work and his research. And I think he is incredibly intelligent, and the way he's able to explain these very complex insights and themes and ideas in a very simplified way, I think he's just a lead at it. And he's somebody that has, when I think of the people who have really had the most impact on my journey, he's definitely up there at the top. But he has this idea of energetic sovereignty. It's when you no longer allow the outside world to create your inside world. When you hand your power away, you're not losing anything. You're giving away your ability to choose, right? This is deep. When you reclaim it, you stop being a victim of the environment and start becoming the creative of your internal environment. This is a big shift. Energetic sovereignty. My ability to control my internal world without allowing the external circumstances or events to shift that. That's called energetic sovereignty, right? That is where your power is, right? And that's why all of the power that you're searching for is within yourself. And when you realize that, it's going to help you to stop giving your power away to the external world. Another way so many people give their power away is constantly waiting for things outside of themselves to change before they change. That's also a form of giving your power away, because you're saying, until this circumstance is adequate, until this person changes, until this experience, moves into the box that I feel is comfortable, I can't change, I can't move, I can't shift, I can't grow. That is victimhood at its finest, right? You are literally staying stuck because you are waiting for something outside of yourself to happen or to change or to shift for you to change. But energetic sovereignty, right, or becoming the victor of your life, like we've been talking about, is about understanding, no, I don't need to rely on all these things outside of myself for my growth and my change and my evolution. I can actually start to turn my gaze inward, start to do that inner work, and create a very strong foundation internally that allows me to navigate all of these different external stimulus and circumstances in an aligned way. And that right there is where your power is, beautiful people. That right there is where your power is. An analogy for this point, I love this. It's like leaving all of your windows open during the winter and then wondering why the house is cold, why it's freezing. You didn't lose the heat. You literally leaked it. You didn't lose the heat. The winter didn't take your heat. You leaked it. You gave away your heat by lowering your windows, right? And so many people don't even realize that their windows are down, but they're complaining that their house is cold, right? And this is not just applied to the house. This is a life thing. So many people are wondering why it's cold, and they don't even realize that their windows are down, right? And this is why awareness is so important. Awareness is the first step of change. We have to first become aware that we are constantly giving our power away to all of these things. And then once we become aware, we must set a new intention to take our power back. And with that intention, we got to start taking aligned action. So we got to go to each window, close it. And it's still going to be cold at first, but over time, with them windows closed, you're going to start to feel the house heat up more and more. And if we correlate that to life, over time, as you start to slowly take your power back, you're going to start to feel more empowered, right? You're going to start to feel more grounded as you move through life. That's a blessing. That's a blessing. You give your power away every time you let an external moment dictate your internal emotional state. When you react instantly without awareness, you fall into the emotional patterns of the past. This is the old self that Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about: predictable, conditioned, and reactive. Becoming a victor means stepping back into awareness and choosing a different way of being, right? Your power is in your ability to choose, and you'll never be able to choose alignment if you don't cultivate awareness. So in the moments where something happens and it frustrates us or it shifts us internally, emotionally, we need to learn how to take a step back in that moment, become aware of the situation, and then intentionally choose a response that's aligned with who we are, right? Rather than just allowing something to happen and then we react out of that. Somebody does something, we react. Something happens, we react. Somebody says something, we react. We got to take a step back and create some awareness, right? It's what we've talked about in previous episodes. the space between stimulus and response is awareness, and that is where your power lies, right? Your ability to choose. Once you understand that no moment has inherent power over you, you begin to move through life with a deeper steadiness. You stop absorbing energy and start directing it. You stop bracing for life and start shaping it. Your power is never stolen, it's surrendered, and you can reclaim it at any moment. That's very, very profound. Understand that your power is not stolen. Your power wasn't taken from you. It was given, right? And understanding that it was given means I can reclaim it at any moment in time. And I was talking about this with my mom earlier. Take it with a grain of salt, because when it comes to kids having to, go through different experiences and they're so young that they don't even realize what's happening, right? We have compassion and empathy for that. But there comes a certain point where hopefully you're aware of what had happened and that stuff comes up. And now in those moments, that's where you have to become the victor of your life, right? So I'm not speaking about, because me and my mom went back and forth on that. Not in an argument. I'm just saying, like, through conversation, because she works with students and I used to work with students as well, young kids. So I understand, like, at that age, they don't have the articulation, they don't have the depth, the capacity, the awareness to even understand what's happening. And, that's kind of how so many people grow up, and they don't have awareness. They don't have, the skills or ability to choose because of the things that they've been through, and they don't even realize that that stuff is driving their vehicle on an everyday basis. So with spaces like these, right, when we reach a certain point in life where we're able to understand, complex things and have these type of conversations, we have spaces like these that can help people to shift into more of a state of awareness and start to move in a more aligned and authentic way. Understanding you are the victor of your life, and you absolutely can reclaim your power from the things that have happened to you in your past. We do not need to allow our past to keep creating our predictable future. No, we can look at our past with introspection, with reflection. We can learn from it, and then we can choose to act in a more aligned, authentic way rather than allowing our past to dictate everything that we do. And then it's just creating a cycle that we live in, right? We are literally living in a cycle of the past, and we wonder why we're not getting anything new in the future, right? Because we're just allowing our past to create our future. But like I said, at any moment we can reclaim our power, and that's what we're going to do in this episode. A practice for point number 1. We call this the power audit. At the end of each day, ask, where did I give my power away today? What emotion or story took over my wheel? How can I respond differently tomorrow to stay aligned with my highest self? This is huge. I do this with myself every day, basically. Every day I reflect on the moments throughout my day where I felt like I gave my power away, or I felt susceptible to the external circumstance, right? Because we're human, right? We're human. It's not about perfection. Here we go again. It's not about perfection. It's about progression. It's not about always making the right decisions and never, allowing anything outside of yourself to mess with you or frustrate you. No, it's just about having a certain level of awareness to see when those things happen, and then being able to reflect, right, with the right perspective so that you can grow from it rather than, getting mad at yourself for falling back. No, it's okay, right? So we look at it. Where did I give my power away today, right? Was it in that argument? Was it, during when I was driving, did I fall into road rage, right? Did I allow something I saw on social media to completely shift the way that I felt? Whatever it is, was I thinking about something from the past and allowing that to take me away from the present, right? Let's reflect on it. What emotions was I feeling in those moments? And what emotion did I allow to sway me in a totally different direction? Let's reflect with grace. We're not going to reflect from judgment or beating ourselves down. No, we're going to reflect with grace. And then we're going to ask, how can I respond differently tomorrow in a way that's aligned with my highest self? And then guess what? When you wake up tomorrow, what a beautiful opportunity you have to live that intention out, to learn and grow from what you just went through. Come on. That's how we grow. That's how we grow. Point number 2, radical responsibility. Radical responsibility is one of the most freeing commitments you can make. It means taking ownership over your internal world, your reactions, your choices, your interpretations, even when the situation wasn't your fault. Victimhood ties your identity to the event. Responsibility pulls your identity back to yourself. It doesn't mean you caused the pain. It doesn't mean you deserved what happened. It means you won't let the event have authority over how you move forward. This is huge. This is huge. When you embrace radical responsibility, you liberate yourself from waiting for apologies, waiting for the closure, waiting for the validation, waiting for life to be fair. You take back your authority for your healing and for your next chapter. That is what radical responsibility is about. Radical responsibility. We need to learn how to take radical responsibility over our life, over our reactions, over how we show up, over our perspective, over our mindset, right? Over the lens in which we are looking through life in, right? We need to learn how to take radical responsibility over the things that we have control over. Know what happened to you may not always have been your fault. No, you didn't deserve, that misfortunate event or unfortunate event, No, you didn't deserve those things. But how you respond, how you move from that experience, that is where radical responsibility comes in. And that's where your power is. But so many people lack the ability to take responsibility over the things that they've experienced because they immediately give their power away to the external circumstance, to the external experience. And I know it's hard, right? So take it with a grain of salt, right? It's not supposed to be easy. It's not easy to go through something that was not your fault, that was out of your control, and that hurt deeply, and to take the stance, you know what? It is still my responsibility on how I respond from the situation, how I grow from the situation. It's not easy to do that. But like I always say, we're not searching for ease. We're searching for growth. We're searching for authenticity. We're searching for alignment, right? And with those things, you're going to have to learn how to take responsibility over the things you have control over. Even when all of these things outside of you are happening, people are doing things that you don't deserve, weren't your fault, all that stuff, we got to learn how to take responsibility over how we show up and how we move through those situations, Because if you don't take radical responsibility over that, you're going to constantly be waiting for the closure. You're going to constantly be waiting for life to be fair. You're going to constantly be waiting for the validation. You're going to constantly be waiting for, that person to apologize or, that past experience to change before you change, right? And you're going to be waiting forever. Right? And that's what some people do is they allow what has been done to them to make their identity, to define them, and then they stay stuck in that for their whole entire life, right? And that's the reason they can't change. That's the reason they can't grow. That's the reason they can't do this or do that. That's the reason they are the way they are. We don't want to end up like that, y'all. We do not want to end up like that because yes, what that person is saying is valid as far as what was done to them and all of the things that came with that. But where they are lacking is awareness and giving their power away, and they don't even realize it, right? You are literally giving your power away to the things that have been done to you when you sit and wait for things to change, for you to change, or for the closure, or for the validation, or constantly wishing and hoping things were different. You're just sitting there waiting, and it's like, what are we going to do, right? What are we going to do in those moments? What are we going to do in those moments? We need to learn how to take radical responsibility over our life. And it's very, very hard because your ego doesn't want to do that. Your ego wants to blame everything outside of yourself, right? So when you want to take radical responsibility over your life and how you're responding to the situations, it is going to take a hit on your ego. But you have to have that internal dialogue with yourself to understand, hey, if I don't do this, I'm going to constantly be in a state of victimhood, allowing what was done to me to keep me stuck. And I don't want to stay here anymore. I want to grow. I want to evolve. I want to be better. I want to be more aligned. So that's going to require me to take radical responsibility over the things that I have control over, right? I have control over how I show up every day. I have control over my perspective. I have control over my responses, right? I have control over my mentality and my attitude. So let me focus on being very responsible in those areas and aligning those areas with, what aligns with my highest self and navigating situations that way rather than waiting for all of these things outside of myself to change or to rewind or to shift or to do this before I shift. Come on. Responsibility. That word comes from the Latin word respondere, meaning to respond. Not to blame, not to fault, simply your ability to respond. Responsibility, your ability to respond. This is exactly what Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches, that your response is what signals to your brain, to your nervous system, and to the quantum field who you are choosing to become. If you keep responding from old emotions, you keep recreating the same reality. Responsibility is the bridge between the past and the future. This is right here. We gotta pause on this. This is huge. This is huge, right? Your responses in life literally signal to your brain, to your nervous system, and to the quantum field. The quantum field is the energetic field that connects every single thing in this known universe. Everything. There's this invisible field that is connecting all of everything, right? And please do more research into that so you can learn more. But that's basically, think of the quantum field as everything that is around us that we can't see, but it connects everything. It's in everything, right? But your response literally signals to your brain, to your nervous system, and to the quantum field who you are choosing to become. Literally, your power is in your response to the things that you go through, right? If you want to change and be a better version of yourself, yet you keep choosing the same responses based off of past versions of you or past experiences, you are literally signaling to your brain, to your nervous system, and to the quantum field that you want to stay the same. And we wonder why there's so much dissonance. We're responding in a way that's not aligned, in a way that's, connected to the past or attached to the past, yet we're searching for something new, something different. No, we're literally creating the same reality by responding to all of these things in the same exact way, right? Responding from old emotions. You keep creating the same reality by responding from old emotions. Every time you feel this, I respond. Every time you feel that, I respond, right? And those feelings that you keep feeling are tied to past versions of you, past experiences, right? Past situations. And it's become conditioned and programmed into our system, right? And we keep reacting to life out of those old emotions, right? And if you keep reacting out of those old emotions, you are going to keep creating the same reality. It's just going to show up in a different way, right? In a different person, in a different experience. And you're going to become very, very frustrated with life, not realizing that you're the one creating it. And this is where we need to take a step back and understand, hold on, I am the creator of my reality. I actually have the ability to choose. I actually have the ability to respond in a way that's aligned, right? You see how this gives so much more power. And at first, like we said, it's going to be difficult because you're going against the program. But the more you start to choose from a place of alignment, the more you're going to feel empowered. And the more you feel empowered, the more fuel you are going to have to keep on taking steps in that direction. That's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing. An analogy, right? It's like driving. Someone can cut you off, and that part is not your fault. It's not your fault that somebody cut you off. But what you do after is your responsibility. Somebody cutting you off on the road is not your fault. How you respond is on you every single time. But we justify our limiting responses because of what somebody did. And although what they did, that's a fact, they did cut you off. But how you responded is 100% on you. But you can't even see that because you're so focused on what the person did to you. And you're giving your power away right there. No, we got to take a step back, right? This is why breathing is so important, right? Somebody cuts me off. Of course I get frustrated. But I breathe in that moment rather than, no. Let me bring myself back. And it may take a few minutes, but let me bring myself back. We're good. We're okay. We're straight. If you haven't watched my podcast episode with Dr. K, Dr. Koshal, I think it was titled it was the last one I posted. I forgot what that one was titled, but it was a few episodes ago. Go tap in. But he brought up this research about emotions that was so profound to me. He said there was some research done on, how long it takes for your body and your brain to let go of a certain emotion when it feels it, from the point that it starts to when it's starting to let it go. And literally, so let's say I feel an emotion of frustration, right? From that moment, 90 seconds later, my body and my brain are already trying to let go of it, are already moving on to the next thing. The only reason it stays and we allow that emotion to linger is because we attach ourselves to it and we keep on lighting the fire, right? So, let's use this example of driving the car. I'm driving a car, somebody cuts me off, boom, I have that emotion, right? The frustration or the anger, whatever it is. From that moment, 90 seconds later, my body, my brain is already willing to let it go. But depending on my response, I'm either going to let it go with my brain and my body, or I'm going to keep holding on to it because I'm just reacting. I'm just, oh my God, they did this. And I'm just mad, and I'm just allowing it to mess up the rest of the drive, right? But in that moment with awareness, it happens. We feel it. We can breathe into it, right? Take a deep, deep breath, or a couple if you need, right? Let yourself come back to center and allow the emotion to fade away, right? And then you get back to your day later, rather than allowing that to mess up the rest of your day because it happened and you were so quick to react, and now you're holding on to that emotion, and you're using the experience to justify why you're holding on to the emotion, and you're allowing it to change how you're showing up, how you're talking to people, and what you do for the rest of the day. Nah. Two totally different ways you can go, right? Same situation. We both got cut off. Two people got cut off. One person takes a step back with awareness, breathes into that moment, breathes into the emotion, and responds in an aligned way. Another person, they react out of the frustration, they react out of the anger, and they hold on to it for the rest of their day. Same experience, two totally different outcomes. What's the difference? In the response, right? And what comes after. And that is what radical responsibility is about. Radical responsibility over your response to the things that happen to you. When you avoid responsibility, you stay emotionally tied to the moment that hurt you, or moments or experiences that hurt you. Your mind keeps revisiting it, replaying it, looking for justice or clarity that may never come. Responsibility frees you from that emotional loop and lets you step into your healing with intention instead of resentment. And this, when I'm reading this, and when I was going over this, I was thinking of when I really went through my first heartbreak. This is a prime example of when this really comes up. You know, when I was in the thick of it, right? When I had just, been heartbroken and I'm feeling it heavy. Every time I would think about that person or those experiences, I would feel those same emotions. And my mind was looking for the justice, looking for the clarity, looking for the closure. And those emotions were just creating more of that emotional loop and making me feel, that same hurt and that same pain. And it's in those moments where you can get trapped if you're not aware. You can get really, really trapped in that emotional loop. And now 2, 3, 4, 5 months later, you see a picture of that person, or somebody brings them up, or you have a thought of them. You feel the same emotion, and the same loop happens again. And it's just like that forever. And you stay tied to what had happened to you, waiting for that person to do something for you to release that emotion, right? Responsibility frees you from that emotional loop, right? It was in that moment that I realized, and especially when you're going through stuff, it is important to feel what you need to feel. When I was going through the heartbreak, I had to feel that for a couple of weeks. I had to let myself feel that heartbreak. But then there comes a point where I had to stand on my 2 feet, look myself in the mirror and say, okay, now it's time to really take responsibility over this next part of the path, this next part of the journey. Are we going to stay stuck in that emotional loop? Or are we going to learn from the experiences? Are we going to reflect, right, in a way to where we can gain the lessons and the wisdom from what had just happened? And are we going to take steps in a aligned direction, right? Or are we going to allow this emotional loop to keep us in a cycle, keep us stuck, keep us down, waiting for that person to do something, to come back, right? To call, to text. We can't be waiting, because a lot of times you'll be waiting forever, and it's very, very painful, very, very painful. But responsibility frees you from that emotional loop and allows you to step into your healing with intention instead of resentment. So many people try to heal through the things that they've been through from a place of resentment. You're still holding on to resentment to what that person did to you or what you had to go through. And you don't even realize you're literally blocking your ability to heal by being rooted in that resentment. And it's because we're so attached emotionally to what had happened, right? And we're allowing what had happened to dictate how we think and feel on an everyday basis, and it's creating a loop that we keep living in. And we're waiting for something or someone outside of ourselves to save us from that emotional loop, not realizing that we're the ones staying attached to it. No, we weren't the one that did that thing to us in the past that happened, but we are the one continuing to reignite that flame internally on that emotion and just holding on to it, waiting for something outside of ourselves to take that pain or that emotion away, not realizing that it's on you. It's 100% on you. And at first that may sound very daunting and scary to hear, but when you start to go down that process or that journey of understanding How I navigate, how I respond, how I handle my emotions is on me, and you start to take steps in that direction, through that process, you're going to understand, oh my gosh, like I feel so much more empowered because I took control over my life rather than waiting for all of these things outside of myself to happen first. I started. And now I feel empowered. And now I'm not waiting for anything outside of myself. I'm not waiting for anyone outside of myself to create the life that I want to create, to live the life that I want to live, to take steps in an aligned direction, right? And that's where your power lives. Right there. That is where your power lives. And like we said, every response is a signal to your brain, to your nervous system, and to the quantum field of who you're choosing to become. So when you start responding in an aligned and authentic way, you are literally signaling out to the quantum field, to the universe, to your brain, to your nervous system, that this is who we are choosing to become. Come on, y'all. Come on. Taking responsibility is a spiritual decision. It's saying, I won't let what happened to me dictate the quality of my internal world. It's choosing how you show up from your highest self instead of your wounded self. Taking responsibility over your life is about learning how to show up from your highest self rather than from your wounded self, right? When you're living in a state of victimhood, and I use that word lightly because I know that could be a trigger word for somebody, but we've already expressed what victimhood is, so we're using that definition. When you're living from a state of victimhood, you are choosing to respond from your wounded self rather than from your higher self. And when you're choosing to respond from a place of victimhood, you don't even have the awareness to realize that that's what you're choosing. You just think life is happening to you and this is just the way it is. When in actuality, no, it's not. At any moment in time, you can decide to align yourself with your highest self and start responding from that space. It says just because it wasn't your fault doesn't mean it isn't your responsibility to grow from it, right? And this is something that is very hard to hear, but a lot of us need to hear. Just because it wasn't your fault does not mean it is not your responsibility to grow from it, right? Sometimes we just need to take a step back with that and really let that sit. No, what happened to me, what that person did to me was not my fault. Did you deserve it? Probably not. But it is 100% your responsibility on how you grow from it. And that right there is where your power lies. But so many people miss out or don't realize that they're giving their power away to what has happened to them because they are waiting for that person or that thing to give them the closure, to change, or to bring some validation or whatever it is for them to feel better, for them to change, right? And you constantly are in this state of waiting. And this is where it can become very, very limiting. Like, let's use relationships, right? Because so many people get into relationships from a place of attachment, right? And what I mean by that is when you have voids internally, right? Lack of validation, lack of self-worth, childhood experiences that, created some voids internally, whatever it may look like, past experiences. What we try to do unconsciously a lot of times is we try to attach ourselves, or we don't try to, we attach ourselves to all of these things externally to fill those voids. A lot of people get into relationships from a place of lack, and so they use that person or that relationship to fill a void internally, and that's where the attachment is created. So now, this is where we get into a very gray area. Now, let's say that, those two individuals end up splitting up, and one person is emotionally attached to that person. They are literally going to feel like they have lost a part of themselves, and that is what's going to cause them to constantly fixate on that person coming back, on hoping that that person, brings them closure, on hoping that that person calls them or texts them, right? Because they have an emotional attachment to this person, and they can't live whole without this person because this person has filled that void, right? And this is why it's so important to realize when you create attachments, because it gives you a signal to where there may be a void internally. And then you can start to do some of that inner work. And it's not easy, but it is necessary. It's not easy, but it is necessary, right? But in relationships, attachments create so much dissonance. I see it all the time, too, with people will stay in relationships with people who are obviously showing them they don't value them, they don't care for them in the way that they think they care for them, or it's not aligned, because they have created an attachment to this person, And the idea of life without them hurts more than what that person is actually showing them. The abuse, the lack of communication, the lack of emotional stability. Yeah, all these things hurt, but the idea of not being with this person hurts more, so I'm going to stay. And you see people stay in very, very toxic or, contracting relationships simply because there's an attachment and they can't let go of that person, because if they let go of that person, they feel like they're losing a part of themselves. And that pain is way too great. That pain is way too great. So I'm going to stay in this toxic relationship because your nervous system would rather stay in a familiar hell than step into unfamiliar heaven. Come on, man. When we're searching out, or when we're thinking about relationships, what we're looking for is connection, not attachment. Connection is when two people are connecting, right? It's coming from a place of wholeness, right? They're both whole within themselves, and now we can connect from that wholeness, right? Attachments is when we're trying to get together from a place of lack, or we have voids that we're trying to fill, right? And a lot of people don't even realize that that's what they're doing. And just to show how beautiful this episode is and how things happen in real time, literally, there was a part in here I had to cut. Y'all probably didn't hear it because I did it so seamless. But literally, somebody came into the podcast studio while I'm recording, and it says podcast, like recording in session. I'm locked in doing my thing, and they came in, and they see me, and they still come in. And I'm like, okay. And my first reaction was frustration because I was in my flow. I like to be in my zone, but I used what we just talked. I breathed, and now we back. We're good. I responded in an aligned way. Rather than allowing that situation to mess up my whole mood, now I can't even finish the podcast. That's how some people really be navigating life, y'all. Something like that happens, they immediately give their power away. They feel the emotion, they stay attached to it, and now it messes up the rest of the vibe. I can't do this no more. I'm done because of that person. Whoa, nah. Take a breath. We're going to take a deep, deep breath, y'all. Come on. Take deep, deep breath. A practice for point number 2 is the ownership dialogue. When something triggers you, internally repeat, I didn't choose what happened, but I choose what this becomes. I didn't choose what happened to me, but I absolutely do choose what it becomes in my life. And that's where your power is. Your ability to choose is where your power lies. Choose wisely. Point number 3, your past is a chapter, not a life sentence. Your past is a chapter, not a life sentence. Your past can explain you, but it was never meant to confine you. The moment you stop letting previous experiences become your identity, you open a door to a completely different future. Victims relive their past. Victors reinterpret it, learn from it, and then move beyond it. Your past is part of your story, but it is not your whole story. What holds people back is not the event itself, but the meaning they attach to it. Change the meaning, and the past loses its grip. You're not here to recycle pain. You're here to evolve through it. Come on. You were not put on this earth to recycle pain, to allow what was done to you to dictate how you are in this moment and keep on creating your future, right? To keep on living in that past that you can't get over. You were not put here to keep on recycling pain. You were put here to learn how to evolve through it. So we need to ask ourselves, are we living through our past? Right? Are we reliving our past and allowing that to dictate what we create in the moment? Or are we looking back and reinterpreting it from a different perspective, moving through it, moving beyond it, learning from it? This is where we need to have radical responsibility over what we're choosing to do. Past comes from the Latin word praeter, meaning beyond. Your past is literally something you are meant to move past, not live inside. So many people are living inside of their past. And your past, literally the word past, means beyond. You were meant to move beyond the past. You were not meant to live in it. Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches that when you keep firing the same emotional patterns connected to your past, your body believes it's still happening. That is why people recreate similar cycles, relationships, fears, insecurities, habits. To break free, you must teach your body what a future emotional state feels like. Okay, let's break this down, y'all. This is really deep because your body is objective, which means your body does not know the difference between an emotion that's created from an actual event and an emotion that's created through a visualization or a thought of the event. Do you know how profound that is? So that means, right, if you are still attached to what had happened to you, and you think about it, or you see something that triggers those emotions that are attached to what was done to you in the past, your body thinks that that past experience is happening in the moment. And that's why we keep recreating the same cycles, because we are literally living off of a cycle of the past, off an emotion of the past. So literally healing is about learning how to get over what was done to you. And how do you get over what was done to you? You have to teach your body what a new emotional state feels like. That's why you must first feel what you need to feel where you are. Okay, this is what I'm feeling. And then I need to teach my body a new feeling, right? Meditation, visualization, breath work, journaling, right? That's why these, oh snap, hit my table. That's why these things are so profound and so important in our journey. This is so deep, because your emotional state literally creates your reality. Your emotions are energy in motion. Your emotional state creates a vibration. That vibration creates a frequency. That frequency attracts things into your life in the form of people, circumstances, and events. And people wonder why they keep getting the same people, circumstances, and events. They just come in different shapes, colors, and sizes, because you're living on a program. You're living on a cycle, a record of the past. We got to break free from that. And before we move on, this is what just came to my mind. Okay, how do we break free from that? Take out a pen and a piece of paper. I've said this so many times. You need to have a vision of what the best version of yourself looks like, what they think like, and what they feel like on an everyday basis, and how they act. Look at those emotions, and look at the emotions that you're carrying on an everyday basis right now, right? And we need to learn how to align where we are now with the emotions of this best version of ourselves, right? And the more we start to embody those emotions, the more we slowly start to let go of the emotions of the past and live in the emotions of the future, right? The one that we're trying to create. That's when you become a creator of your life. That's so deep. Oh, that's so good. This is a great analogy. Your past is a museum. You can visit it, learn from it, even appreciate what it showed you. But you are not meant to move your furniture into it and live there. Think of your past like a museum. This is a great framework. Think of your past like a museum. You can visit it, you can learn from it, even appreciate what it showed you. But you are not meant to move all your stuff in, your furniture, your bed, your clothes, all that, and live there. You are not meant to live there. And so many people don't realize that they are living in their past. What that person did to them, what they went through, that tough season. And because we don't have the right perspective to the things that we go through, right? We don't interpret these things in the right way. We assign the wrong meaning to what was done to us. We live in that box of what was done to us. We don't grow from it. We don't move beyond it, right? We don't get the wisdom from it. No, we become resentful. We become bitter. We become attached. And it just keeps us stuck, living the same cycle over and over again, waiting for something outside of ourselves to change before we change. Waiting for something outside of ourselves to change before we change. We cannot do that. We must learn how to take our power back. And how you take your power back is by responding to the things that happen to you, even when they're out of your control, even when you didn't deserve it, in a way that's aligned and congruent with the best version of you, rather than becoming susceptible to allowing the external experience and external circumstance to dictate how you think and feel on an everyday basis and how you act. I am this way because of that. I am this way because they did this. It's dangerous. It's dangerous. And even still, and this is something that I really want you guys to really think about and look for in your life. Look at the people that are closest in your life and really start to pay attention to how they talk, how they show up, in the language that they use throughout their life. You can there's a lot of signs that somebody is still living off a record of the past, or they're living in victimhood, right? There's a lot of signs for that. Complaining more than, talking about good things, or, constantly gossiping, constantly focusing on what's wrong, constantly blaming everything outside of themselves, constantly, being a pessimist and seeing the worst in things, constantly using what they've been through as justification on why they are the way they are. Really start to pay attention, right? After this episode, really start to pay attention to that, and you'll start to see how people are constantly giving their power away on an everyday basis, and they don't even realize it. And it's so wild. It's so wild. And like we said, your ego will use those past experiences and the things that you've been through and what people have done to you as justification on why you are the way you are. And that's what people will use when you try to help them to change and they don't want to change. Oh, you ain't go through what I went through. You didn't experience what I experienced. You don't know what it's like, right? That's ego talking. That is your ego talking. That's your ego using what you've been through as justification on why you can't change, why you can't be better. And like we said, what happened to you is 100% valid. We're not taking that from you. But look at how you're responding. You're giving your power away to it. And you're never going to grow from it, right? You're never going to grow from it. So be mindful of that. Most people aren't stuck in their past. Their nervous system is. Familiar pain feels safer than unfamiliar peace. Until you consciously choose a different emotional home, your body will keep pulling you back into what it knows. I'm going to read it one more time. Not even going to explain. I'm just going to read it, let this marinate, move on to the next. Most people are not stuck in their past. Their nervous system is. Familiar pain often feels safer than unfamiliar peace. Until you consciously, that's the word, until you consciously choose a different emotional home, your body will keep pulling you back into what it knows. Okay, that's deep. When you transform the meaning of your past, you transform the emotional signature attached to it. This rewires your identity at the deepest level. And when your identity changes, your future can finally change with it. When you change the meaning of your past, you assign meaning to the things that you go through. That's why perspective is so important. That's why mindset is so important. That's why interpretation is so important. You assign meaning to the things that you go through. And depending on the meaning that you assign to it, it's going to dictate the emotional signature that's attached to that experience, right? When you assign a limiting or negative meaning to experiences, the emotional signature attached with that is going to feel aligned with that meaning you've created. But when you shift it, because you shifted your perspective and your mindset, right, and your energy and how you show up and how you look at life, when you assign the meaning that I'm growing through this season, that this isn't happening to me, it's happening for me, that what may feel like a burden is usually just a blessing in disguise. When you assign that meaning to it, this is development, this is part of my growth, this is part of my evolution, this is part of the journey. When you assign that meaning to it, the emotional signature attached to it is going to feel way different. You're not going to feel resentment and bitterness and self-judgment, condemnation, insecurity because of these things. No. You're going to feel gratitude, inspiration, motivation, devotion, drive, expansion, come on. It's a lot of A practice for point number 3, rewriting the narrative. Write 2 versions of a past event, right? 2 versions of a past event. So on one side of the paper, we're going to write what happened, right? Write out the experience and what happened. And then on the other side, write what it taught you and what you learned from it. Write what it taught you and what you learned from it. Read what it taught you and what you learned from it and how you grew from it until it becomes your new emotional truth. Focus more on what you can learn and how you can grow from what you've been through rather than what was actually done to you. Come on. And point number 4, the last point, responding instead of reacting, the victor's superpower. Life will always present challenges, discomfort, and moments that trigger something inside of you. But your victory comes from the space between what happens to you and how you respond. Reacting is automatic, a product of old wounds, old fears, and old conditioning. Responding is conscious, aligned with who you're becoming, not who you were. When you develop the ability to respond instead of react, you gain emotional authority over your life. You stop living as a product of your past and start living as a product of your intention. When you develop the ability, develop the ability. It's not going to happen like that. But if you start to move with that intention that I want to develop the ability to respond instead of react, and you slowly take steps towards that every single day, your ability to respond is going to grow and strengthen. And that is how you gain emotional authority over your life. Most people do not have emotional authority over their life because they're constantly allowing all of the things outside of themselves to dictate their emotional state. So when things around them are good, that's when they feel good. When things around them are bad, they feel bad. When somebody says something they don't like, they don't feel good. When somebody does something they don't like, they don't feel good. When somebody does something they like, they feel good. When somebody says something they like, they feel good. When they see something they don't like, they don't feel good. When they see something they do like, they feel good. That is just up and down all day. Rather than rooting and grounding yourself in the emotional state that's aligned with who you are and who you're trying to become, and allowing yourself to carry that out throughout the day, no matter what's happening around you. And the moments where you feel yourself go up or down, you bring yourself back with intention and awareness, bring yourself back to that emotional state with those grounding practices, whatever that looks like for you, and you keep on going throughout the day. That's how you take emotional authority over your life, and you need that. You need emotional authority over your life, man. So many people just are constantly giving away their emotional state to everything outside of themselves, man. That's what victimhood is, literally, at its finest. You are giving all of your power away to everything outside of yourself. Giving all of your power away to everything outside of yourself. Understand it's inherent. Everybody is going to go through challenges, discomfort, tests, difficulty, tough seasons. You're going to have moments that trigger something inside of you. You're going to have to navigate really uncomfortable conversations. Everybody's going to go through this stuff. It is inherent. So it's not about changing these things. It's about learning how to respond to these things in a more aligned, authentic way. A way that's congruent with who we are trying to become and the truth of the best version of ourselves, rather than falling susceptible to the circumstance and allowing it to make us bitter, right? In life, you can either allow what happens to you to make you bitter or make you better. And the choice is yours. The choice is yours. Choose wisely. All right, let's break down react and respond. React comes from the Latin word reagere, meaning to act again. Every reaction is you reliving the past, acting again from the same emotional memory. Respond comes from respondere, meaning to promise back. A response is a promise to the version of you that you are becoming. This is deep. Dr. Joe Dispenza teaches us that the gap between stimulus and response is where your brain rewires and your identity shifts. The gap is where you choose your future instead of repeating your past. This is why awareness is so important. It is the first step of any change you want to see in your life. If you do not have awareness over how you're reacting and how you're showing up and how you're feeling and thinking on an everyday basis, you have zero ability to choose something different. So we have to start with awareness. We need to learn how to sit with ourselves and become aware of what are we thinking on an everyday basis? What am I feeling on an everyday basis, right? Let me start there with awareness. Then, after we have written out a best version of ourselves, an aligned version of ourselves, somebody that we're trying to embody, and we see the thoughts and we see the emotions that are aligned with this person, we need to learn how to bring that version of ourselves into the moment. We need to learn how to embody that in the moment, right? Through intention, through awareness, through attention, focusing our attention on things that align, through focusing on responding rather than reacting. Come on. The gap, literally the gap between stimulus and response, the gap between something happening to you and your response is literally where your brain rewires and your identity shifts. Most people keep on affirming the old identity because they keep reacting in the same way to the things that happen to them. But the moment you cultivate awareness in your life and you bring awareness in between stimulus, so something happening to you, and response, how you respond, in that space right there, when you choose to do something different than your past, you are literally rewiring your brain. You are literally shifting your identity to align with where you are trying to go rather than being stuck based off of a record of the past. Come on. An analogy for this point, a reaction is like a spark that lights a fire instantly, right? A spark that lights a fire instantly. It just happens, right? Just no control, no nothing. A response is like a hand that chooses where to place the fire with intention, direction, and wisdom, right? A response is like, okay, I'm going to take this match. Well, first I'm going to make the fire over here in my backyard around the fire pit. I'm going to take this match. I'm going to place it intentionally in the middle, get the wood, everything. And I'm going to make a fire that's controlled rather than just a spark hitting some fuel on the ground and then just, and there's no, that's out of your control. It's done. It says reactivity means your body is still in control. It means your nervous system is living in survival mode, reliving old emotional patterns. You aren't responding to the moment. You're responding to something inside of you that hasn't healed yet. Responding builds self-trust. Every time you choose awareness over impulse, you signal to yourself, I am the one in charge of my internal world. This is how you shift into your future identity one decision at a time. Every time you choose awareness over impulse, you are literally signaling to yourself, I am in charge of my internal world. Thoughts, emotions, you listen to me. That's very liberating because so many of us, and so many people in society are slaves to their thoughts and emotions. Think something, feel something, react. Have an impulse, react. Feel something, react. Think something, feel something, react. But when we move into the state of responding from alignment, we start to build self-trust and we start to show our emotions and our thoughts. They are no longer in the driver's seat. We are. We're the observer of our thoughts and emotions, and we get to dictate and choose how to respond. That's where your power lives, right there. In every moment, you are making a choice. Choose wisely. And a practice for point number 4 is the response gap. When you're triggered, pause and take 5 deep breaths. Feel the emotion without acting on it. Choose the response your future self would choose. Practice this in the smallest of ways. Whatever that looks like in your life. Something happens, something triggers you. Pause, 5 deep breaths. Okay. Feel the emotion. I'm not going to act. I'm going to sit here and ask myself, what response aligns with my future self? Okay. I'm going to make that response. Come on. We got this. And it's so powerful. It's so profound, those deep breaths, right? Everything begins with your breath. So when you're able to breathe into those moments and breathe into those emotions, it helps you tremendously to respond rather than react. But, beautiful people, that is going to do it for this week's episode. I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. I'm grateful for each and every one of you. Make sure you cop the Grains merch when it comes out, man. We working on it currently. It should be out soon. And remember, most importantly, to take everything with a grain of salt. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. I will see y'all next week. Deuces.